Welcome to the Forest Harvest CBNE Forum 2021. Thank you for joining us this week as we foster information exchange, capacity enhancement, market engagement, and political action in support of the community-based NTFP enterprises. Our moderator for this session is Ms. Lia Zakia. She is a research associate at Institute for Sustainable Earth and Resources at Universitas Indonesia. Her research focus is on the field of behavioral change communication related to low-carbon lifestyle for individuals and organizations. She is also a climate reality leader at the Climate Reality Project and sits in the board of several organizations, including Youth for Climate Change Indonesia, and she is also the alumni of Junior Achievement in Indonesia. Please give a round of applause for Ms. Zakia.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone in Indonesia and the nearby countries, and good evening for those of you in the US, and well, good day, good evening to all of you wherever you are. It's a wonderful and sunny Friday here, and I hope all of you are in a good health wherever you are. Welcome to the Forest Harvest CBNE Forum 2021, where we'll be specifically discussing about value chain support to community-based non-timber forest product enterprise, or CBNEs, and how to make it green and fair. So before I start, I would like to explain some information to make sure that we have an enjoyable session and a meaningful discussion. Well, I need to introduce myself again. Yeah, I'm Lia Zakia, and I will be the moderator for today. I would like to know you better. So perhaps you can drop something in the chat box saying your name, say hi to each other, and then you can inform us where you are, like the city or the country where you're from, and what company or organization or initiative that you represent here. That would be great. And then you could also see, do I see any question and answer box here? If not, then you could also post it in the chat box. And we have interpretation services, so please use that if you need it. And then there will be questions and answer sessions later on. So please feel free to drop a question as you have it, so that we can choose which question that we need to discuss, because we might not be able to answer them all. Ladies and gentlemen, it is approximated that 1.3 billion people around the world depend on forests, and with approximately 450 million living in the Asia-Pacific region alone. Non-timber forest products, or NTFPs, have been shown to contribute to a large part of forest people's incomes and livelihoods. NTFPs account for an estimate 25% of the income of forest peoples and form the base of community forestry enterprises in the ASEAN region. Despite the importance of NTFPs in the region, NTFP producers often face many challenges. Often their access to resources is restricted, thus affecting consistent supplies. Capacities to develop viable business models is often low given limited educational opportunities, networks, and exposure and interaction with other sectors. But often many issues of small producers persist, and these are issues of capital and market access. So that's why we are here today. We already have three great speakers that can help us lead the discussion here. We have Lina Green. Hi, Lina. From Angels of Impacts. So Lina supports women and indigenous-led community-based entrepreneurs with a goal to eradicate poverty and ensure just and sustainable economies for all. Angels of Impact offers funding and technical assistance to women and indigenous-led community-based enterprises in their transition from medium-sized ventures to sustainable businesses. And it was founded by a group of conscious investors who believe in the purposeful inclusion of women and indigenous communities as key agents to end poverty. Good morning. I will get back to you after this, but I would like to introduce the other speakers.
Sure, looking forward.
Then we have Ibu Mega. Yeah, Megan's son is from Mega Organic Indonesia. An exporter of high-quality natural and organic products, Mega Organic Indonesia strives to continuously develop and offer high-quality, innovative, and in-demand healthy products ranging from raw ingredients to finished products. Through various supports such as providing seedlings, paying for price, imparting up-to-date farming techniques, Mega Organico facilitates farmer partners to become positive elements of change in their community. Good evening, Ibu Megan. I'm aware that you are now in the US, so it's an evening time, right?
Yes.
Yes, I will get back to you with some questions that we can later discuss, yeah?
Thank you.
And the third one, we have Mayur Singh. Hello, good morning. He's the co-founder of the Green Collective, a visionary retail group with a vision to create a responsible green kampung or village, in the middle of Singapore. The Green Collective SG is an ecosystem of sustainable brand owners, conscious consumers, and business. Working together on a principle of sharing, Green Collective is building a community of change makers who collaborate with each other to simplify adoption of a sustainable lifestyle. The collective as sustainable brands get together to collaborate to ensure a positive footprint on the planet for all. Good morning, sir.
Thanks, Leah. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you very much for coming. And I would like to also check where are the participants coming from? We have someone from Kamubodai, and then from Manila, from the Philippines, and I hope the rest would also care to say hi and drop a message so that we know where you are from. Okay, so before I go to our first speaker, Ibu Lainaya, I think we have a video to show before we asking her question. Let's check it out. Wonderful. Angels of Impact. Ibu Laina, that is awesome. So following that up, I have some questions that perhaps you could answer it. We will divide it into two. I will first ask around 2 questions, and then we go to our next speaker, and then we will go back to you again. For the first one, how do you perceive the role of CBNE value creators, and what kind of funding challenges they often face, the area where you are working on?
Sure. Thank you so much, first of all, for organizing this conference and for inviting me to be here. I just wanted to first honor the work that is being done here. Because as you had mentioned before about this sector is actually restoring indigenous wisdom. And that is something we should underscore here, because in the problems that we have in the world today, we have these problems because of the colonization mindset of extraction, right? So the entire financial system, the economic system has always been based on how much can I extract from people working the cheapest, and how much can I extract from the planet at the expense of, so that I can make more profit, right? So I want to first of all say that one of the works that Angels of Impact, our theory of change, is we believe that we need to, what the world needs today to solve the problems of the world is to actually go to a non-extractive economy. It's an economy that goes back into indigenous wisdom. And that is where you come in, right? Because you are really working at the community level, and we like to call you the weavers. Even though you may not be weaving, some of you are weaving literally. Most of you may be doing, food products and other products, but to us, we see you as weaving the fabric of a very resilient society. And that is the key role that we see, right? As the community-based enterprises is bringing the community together and weaving. The products are just a tool for resiliencies, right? Because we still live in an economy where we need to have money. It's still transactional community. But the way I see it is that what you are doing here is you're supporting a community of entrepreneurs that believe in uplifting indigenous wisdom, because what the world needs right now is going back to that, right? So the role that they play is weaving the community, but also the other key role that we see community-based enterprises is as value creators is they are connecting the community to the marketplace, right? And a lot of the social enterprises that the community-based enterprises we work with, I do it in different levels, right? Some of them may be from the point of view of helping the community own a silo so that instead of just being a commodity product, they help them go up the value chain, right? So now you can do bean to bar chocolates, for example, or you can do, products that are innovative like gluten-free pasta instead of just selling the rice, right? So the value creator is very important because they then add the value instead of just commoditizing. Because often what happens when the community is working, it ends up being a commodity and there's no value there for the community. They work so hard for very little, right? So the value creator plays a great role. Another thing about connecting with the marketplace is understanding what the market wants, right? So sometimes the community might like the color black, for example, or black and red, but the marketplace may not like it. So the community-based enterprises is against the bridge between the two. But often, now coming to the second part of your question on funding, what we find is that unfortunately, because we still work in the traditional field of finance, right? So the traditional field of finance wants to see, do you have a collateral? Do you have a personal guarantee? Do you have revenue that's very large that I can then invest in you? So the reason Angels of Impact started was because, first of all, we noticed that there was a funding gap in general for women-led enterprises and particularly community-based enterprises. And even though there was supposedly impact investing, so to speak, that's come in, the community-based women-led enterprises and indigenous-led enterprises unfortunately fall within that crack. So the key is for you to understand that and also be very decipher who you approach for funding. Because sometimes you might be able to get the funding, but then it takes you away from the work that you're doing, or you might spend a lot of time talking to the wrong person. So we do have a report. Come to our website, angelsofimpact.com. We surveyed many entrepreneurs in Myanmar, Indonesia, and Thailand, and we actually did analysis of what the funding gaps are and are there. So
Yeah, that's great. So you mentioned several like support, yeah, that your organization provided for these women and indigenous enterprises. So to give us more concrete understanding, yeah, that we can see what are the support systems that you provide to these women and indigenous enterprises, and how have you impacted them?
Okay, great question. So as you can see from the video, we tried to show that there are many different levels to support, right? So with some of the social enterprises, what we have done in the past was market access. So we used to be able to connect them to, corporate buyers. For example, we've had a bean to bar chocolate company in Indonesia that we connected to Google and Facebook and got them to buy it in their pantries, for example, right? But now we've decided that rather than us doing, because more and more you're having people like Mayur and Chrissy and other people doing that kind of work, so that we decided that instead of doing the market access, we facilitate, we work with partners, others who are doing it, we help them. What instead we do is we focus mainly on the funding gap. And so we do have an evergreen fund and we help, but we also do matchmaking. So we help to bring investors that can help fit the gap. And we also focus on the technical assistance. So the technical assistance comes in different areas. Obviously, we cannot do the technical assistance that's specific in every sector. Like we're not experts on food, for example, but what we can do is bring the experts in, right? But one of the key areas we do is also help you get funding ready. Help you tell the story and help you bring you before the right investor, and therefore increasing the chances of getting funded. So that's the kind of support that we've done. And we've tried to show a little bit of that in that video that you so graciously shared with everyone.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we will get back to you because I have a lot of questions since then. Like, for example, if I am, for example, have this enterprise CBNE, then how can I, contact Angels of Impact and then collaborate further? There might be questions from the audience about that, but yeah, please write some question, any question from Laina on the chat box. And then next, we are saying hi to Ibu Mega. Ibu Megan. Halo, Ibu.
I think someone needs to unmute her. Yeah.
Oh, hi.
Hello.
Yay, hi, hello. Bu, I think you have some photos to show, yeah, before we start so that we understand what it is. So perhaps the host can show some pictures from Ibu Megan from Mega Organic Indonesia. Yeah, oh wow. I think that's honey. Yeah, Bu. So later you can talk more about this. So is this like so is this like the organic and NTFP products do you export from Indonesia, Ibu?
Yes, currently that's the forest product I export from Indonesia to the US and also to Singapore.
Okay. Yeah, why do you think this is, like how it started, Bu? Could you tell us a little bit more about your story?
Well, actually, I started it with cashews at that time, and then somebody introduced me this forest honey, and I brought it back to the US, and my husband said, "This is the best honey he had ever tasted. It's so special, the taste so special, and all the good stuff." So I thought like, this is very interesting. So from there I started to market the product.
Okay. And what is special and what does the market like about the products, Bu? And how has this changed since the pandemic? Is there any impact from that, or maybe it's even more, the sales even more higher because people are now looking for healthy products?
Well, the special about this forest honey, I think, is a combination of the taste and the nutritional value. One study showed that actually forest honey, I mean this particular forest honey, the antioxidant level is actually higher than Manuka honey. And also, I guess the background story behind this honey. So those the combination of those three is very attractive to US buyers. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
How is the sales? Well, before the pandemic, actually, oh, it's upside down the picture. But anyway, so before the pandemic, the sales is actually very good. We have received, my partner and I, my US partner and I received a lot of good reviews. Yeah. But now during the pandemic, actually, we have some trouble because the ocean freight is very high, extremely high. It's like 5 times the normal freight. So that hinders us to ship from Indonesia to the US temporarily. Yes.
Yes. I see.
Unfortunately. Yes.
Oh, I see. Oh, that's not good to hear. But yeah, hopefully we can, see some improvement on that area. Hopefully with the all the vaccination rates going on. But I see that you have some videos to show. Later on, maybe we can show that up. Yeah. After we can like flip it around. All right, Ibu, we will get back to you again. And then now I would like to say, thank you, Ibu. I would like to say hi to our third speaker here, which, has a very interesting initiative in Singapore. Hi, Mayur. Yeah, waiting for him. Okay. All right.
Finally.
Okay, hi. Good morning. Yeah, so following up to our previous questions to the other speakers, what are you able to do in the retail business for small producers that they are not able to do that themselves?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, just to tell everyone, and I've known NTFP and Christine specific for like more than 5-6 years. A lot of the model of Green Collective and the whole collective concept is actually inspired from community-based models which exist in rural Asia. So what we are essentially doing is we're trying to recreate that in Singapore, which is, as all of you would know, it's a very urban center. So very tough to kind of exactly do what we do in rural Asia. So we've modified it. Now, when we started the Green Collective, the whole idea and the problem that we were looking to solve is that if you are a small producer based anywhere in developing Asia, it's very tough to access the market. So many enterprises just struggle with the fact that they are not able to even access the market. So how do you solve the problem of market access? And that is where we created the collective model, which is basically providing retail is one of the services we provide. We also provide logistics as a service. Then we've now started providing advisory as a service. But basically, we are working along 3 pillars. The first pillar is that if you're not in the market, you're not in part of the marketplace. It's as simple as that. So what we try to do is we curate different brands or green kakis, as we call them, based on the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We align you to a UN SDG target so that your impact assessment in the long run is aligned. The second part is then, of course, give you access opportunities. Once the access is done, it's very important for you to start engaging in the marketplace. So that is where we set up a lot of mechanisms wherein we will use our own marketing access as well as empower you to develop your marketing access. And then the third part of the journey is actually growth. Growth is integral to most companies, but I think as Lina said it very, very crucially, we need to really redefine the way we've grown over the past 100, 200 years because it's not really been constructive for the whole planet. So, and I think that's where the community-based enterprises and the wisdom that they bring in is worth so much more to preserve, while the innovation should happen in a lot of other aspects of how to get to the market. How can we innovate on the product? How can we bring the concept of, we call the Green Collective the little kampong. And the reason it's called a kampong is that we didn't want to use the word circularity because when I visited tribes across Asia and lived with them, and you explain circularity, you will get a face saying, we've been doing it for 1,000 years. Why do you have to put a name to it, right? So I think the kampong spirit, or like a village, is the best example of circularity that exists, which doesn't have a lot of the issues that cities have in today's world. And I think that's where our inspiration comes from. However, we do recognize that CBNEs need to actually be empowered and coached and taken along the route. So that is where we try to play a part by providing access, increasing engagement, and eventually putting them on a growth trajectory.
After seeing some of the pictures shown there, what type of products you usually collect and where they are from?
They're from all over Asia, I would say. Of late, we've partnered with a few social enterprises from Africa. So the Green Collective itself, we have a retail store in central Singapore in a mall called Funan. We also work with a few grocery players, like large format grocery retail chains like NTUC, Fair Price and all. So we are also there. And of course, we are online as well. In terms of the product mix, we go from homeware to food to fashion. It's almost, it's around 6 different categories that we have, which would cover most of the real estate in a house. So from your garden, the whole concept is that we want to give you solutions and alternate for a more eco-friendly or a socially responsible lifestyle, so that your home can be actually a representative of that.
Yeah, that could be very addictive. Like if you have a lot of categories and then you buy one and then, oh, I think I need to do that, and then make the whole home full with NTFP product. That is I think great. And then we have a participant there that have been there twice. So you have a repeated customer here. Yeah. So we'll get back to you again, talking about the market, like who buys them usually. But I will get back again to Laina. Hi, Laina. Okay, I'll try to help you unmute if I can do that. Ask to unmute. No, I can't do that.
Yes.
So maybe, okay, now. All right. So yeah, following that up, yeah. What is the difference between impact investing? Because now we heard a lot about, impact investing, but also there is a term about restorative investing. Is that kind of the same, or, or if it's not, why is it important to know the difference?
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you for the question. First of all, I wanted to just underscore something Mayur just said, which is so true. All these terminologies that people use, right? Like circular economy, it's part of the indigenous culture, right? So impact investing in a way is similar, because impact investing initially started off by people saying, okay, traditional investing in terms of trying to look for huge returns and then not caring on the impact on people and planet was not a healthy way to do it. And so they slowly shifted away from saying, let's look at impact as well. Okay. But the problem with that is that impact investing then tried to do both. You need to do market returns and you have to have impact on which is a really huge task. It's difficult enough trying to run a company to do profits with an investor who wants profits. But if you want to do impact as well, it's really hard, right? So what has happened with impact investing, although it initially started off with a good intention, it has actually become, like in Asia right now, there's actually hundreds and millions of dollars for impact investing. That even the big firms like BlackRock, etc., they have impact investing funds, but most of you in the audience don't even bother going and lining up for impact investing, because when they talk about impact investing, they're talking about huge market returns as well. Or even if they compromise the market returns, they still are looking for healthy market returns and scalable businesses and growing so big, right? So that's why there is a gap in the funding. Now, restorative investing is something I came across. Actually, in many ways, that's what Angels of Impact has been doing for the last 5 years. When we started off, there wasn't a name to it, and everyone kept telling me I was crazy to try to fill this gap because there's no business model to fill this gap. But that's actually what drove me even more to want to fill the gap, because I started off as an entrepreneur myself, and I knew how difficult it was to raise funding. And then when I saw the benefit of community-based enterprises, I knew there's no way that the funding gap is even broader, right? Most of the times they have to turn to grants, or they look for government funding, or, friends. And even the concept of friends and family, which in the US you turn to your friends and family, doesn't really exist, right? Like, how can you try to run a crowdfunding platform, you've got to go and ask your friends and family again. So in the US, there's in the last few years, especially with what's been happening with George Floyd, that the whole understanding around structural racism and also decolonization of wealth. There's a very good book I'd recommend by Edgar Villanueva, who's written about how the system of finance. And so basically it's going back and saying the system of finance is what has caused the problem in the people and planet. So you have to first recognize that, right? Then you try to have a system of finance that adds value to the things that traditional finance doesn't add value to. So for example, in a community-based enterprise, the work that you're doing, you might make money selling your products, right? And the investor gives a dollar value to that. But if you really look at the value that you're doing, you're helping to keep the community together. You're helping to keep the family together. You're helping to make sure the health of the families. There's other, like, UN SDGs, for example, that are being impacted, which a traditional investor doesn't look at. So in restorative investing, the whole idea is a new brand of investors who understand that there is value in these other things. There is value in restoring indigenous wisdom. There is value in healing the harm that has been made to people and planet. And so they have a different way of investing. So for example, there will be what's called integrated capital. So instead of just giving a loan, it'll be a loan plus a grant. It would be maybe funding with technical assistance. It may be not looking at huge market returns, but rather looking at just a nominal return so that the wealth can be kept with the community, so that the community can prosper. So the goal of restorative investing is really to heal that harm. But impact investing just wants to do market return and impact, but doesn't look at systems change. So after since it's almost 20 years that we've been doing impact investing, we still don't have systems change. That's why people are now talking. But in addition to restorative investing, by the way, there's another term that I like, which is indigenomics. That's another thing to look at. So the indigenous communities in the United States and New Zealand are now coming and showing that indigenous forms of economics are actually what the world needs. In New Zealand, it's called the tikanga-led. So the tikanga-led has things like manakitanga, which is community, hospitality. There's a value that's added to it. Kaitiakitanga, which is stewardship. So you look at 3 generations behind, present generation, and 3 generations in front. So every action, every value is looked at that way. Kaitia, you're a steward of the land. And that is now creating a new form of investing as well, which is very similar to restorative investing. This, unfortunately, hasn't really come to Asia, unfortunately, but I'm always trying to talk about it because I think that's what the world needs. And we've been very fortunate within the Angels of Impact Network that we've managed to find people who understand that and have come on board, but we still need to find many more.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, like what you've said is very important, that the problem is from the, the business as usual system of finance. Yeah, that is, I think, very hard to break it down and then, introduce a new one. And as you've said, trying to get profit itself is already hard. And then now you also have to try the impact, but then this new initiative come to fill that gap that try to put value on something other than monetary value that needs to be recognized by all players. I think that's, that's what you've said, that, we need more people and how to get those people on board. I think that's the hard, the challenge. How
we need to create a movement. That's why I'm happy to participate here, because we all have to work together to create a movement, to create a new, just and regenerative economy.
Okay, thank you so much. That's very I'm enlightened now. So now I know the difference between those two. And then another one, we need to be ethical, we need to be fair. As you've said, trying to get a return is already hard. But if we're really trying to have to be ethical and fair, what do they mean for you? Ethical and fair. Fair for who and ethical for who?
These are very good questions. I think the ethical part, in fact, recently in our incubation, we had AirAsia Foundation with the professor from Sarawak who talked about that. Not all community-based enterprises or social enterprises are necessarily ethical, right? So by putting the ethical part, what you mean is that they keep the integrity of the community. So for example, we try to make sure, for example, that people are not like buying cheap and selling expensive. For example, that's one area of not being ethical, to make sure that everyone shares wealth. Another aspect of ethical, for example, is that you have sometimes people who say they're working with indigenous communities, but they are actually appropriating. So they're taking designs and then creating fashion, like you would see at H&M or Zalora, certain patterns that actually came from us indigenous communities. So that is also an unethical practice. So the ethical part is very, very key to ensuring that, and ethical from the whole value chain. I'm not just talking about the community, but so it's the people who are your suppliers, everyone's working with you. If there's an ethical supply chain, it becomes easier to do good, right? Because everyone's playing a fair game. The fair part is also a very good question, because fair trade has been a term everyone used in the past, and it's a start. It's not the end goal, right? So by saying that fair trade means I pay you fairly, I pay you X amount more than the market price, that's one way of looking at it. But fair is just the beginning, the way I see it. Really, the way you want to do is really getting up to the point that you're helping to form cooperatives, you're sharing wealth, you're protecting indigenous wisdom, you are uplifting the community. And that's more of a transformative business. So that's the difference. So ethical and fair are still very transactional, that the traditional transactional world can relate to, but we really need to be moving to one of the organizations I work with in the US is called the Native Women Lead, and it's an organization that works with about 1,000 women, indigenous women, and they always they talk, which I totally love, is the multidimensional aspect of life and people, right? So hopefully we will go beyond just ethical and fair to a multidimensional transformative business.
Wow, yeah, that's another one that I need to note. So there are, still a lot of things that we need to learn and then incorporate together, and then trying to get the others on board as well. I guess that's the real challenge on that, right? Thank you so much. If later we have time, we will get back to you before we show it, throw it to the audience. So ladies and gentlemen, if you have questions, please don't be shy to put that on the chat box. We will try our best to answer them all. Okay, so next, Mayur. Oh, Ibu Megan dulu, Ibu Megan. Ibu Megan. Ibu Megan, so you are importing forest honey into the US, yeah? Do you plan to add other products, Bu? What are the potentials for other NTFP's product for the US customers?
Definitely. In fact, now actually I'm in talk with one of the buyers to start processing one of the the other forest product. And I believe that, just from joining this forum for this 1 week is very, it's very packed, very busy, but I've been learning a lot. And I see more and more potential actually, and I really like Lina's word to have transformative business. I think that's the way to do with those community-based enterprises. So we have long-term and sustainable relationship.
Yeah. Well, can you name some of those products that you are now planning to import?
I cannot tell you now, but
Oh, okay. Still a
I'm so
secret.
sorry. But yes, because I have signed an NDA with the buyer.
All right.
Yeah,
Understood.
yes, that's right. But
Yeah. So,
there would be more and more products I'm interested in exporting to the US and other markets, and also at the same time I'm very interested in building this transformative business with the community of that I mean, yeah, with those communities.
okay, so ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, I cannot get the names of the products, but the one that
Yeah,
we
so
know is,
sorry.
yeah, the one that we know from Ibu Megan is there are potentials, there are buyers that are interested in the US for NTFP's product, yeah. So
Yes.
yeah, so I guess that's it. And then, are you planning to engage other CBNEs in the process, Bu? And how?
Yes, definitely. Because I guess that's just we have to engage with those CBNEs, and how the way I see it. So I've been learning a lot from this this whole week, and it's like putting all the dots together. I have the thoughts, but just before joining this forum, I didn't know how to connect all the dots. Now, at least I'm more clear, and the way how to do it, I think I would like to engage with, more with the, I mean, with the, besides the CBNEs, I think it's good to also incorporate or collaborate with some NGOs.
Okay, yeah, so it become multi-stakeholders, yeah, Bu, yeah?
Yes, yes. I just don't have, my company doesn't have the skill, doesn't have the knowledge how to work with the I guess like what Birdie Salva said, the anthropological side of the building the relationship with the farmers, with the community.
I see, yeah. So I guess, this is why the event, this initiative is organized, yeah, to help all participants connect the dots, and then,
And
how
learning
to do
from
it more
each other.
effectively. Learning from each other as well. This is great. Thank you so much, Ibu. We will get back to you. Mayur, so following that up, I would like to ask this question, like, what have been your learning doing this Green Collective in the middle of Singapore?
I think the biggest learning, especially if you're developing a product or building an enterprise which is focused on the consumer, right? Not just businesses, is to not impose what you know, but to actually hear from the market. Now, I'll be honest with you, as an entrepreneur, everyone tells you this, right? But it's one of the toughest things still in the business to do, because we are all human beings, and as human beings, we are prone to get lazy and think about our biases and impose those biases on our business. I think that's the biggest learning, and I can give an example to make it like when from a Green Collective standpoint, when we started selling in Singapore, for the first 1 year, 70% of our top 10 selling products used to be bamboo straws, bamboo cups, very basic kitchen utilities. That trend has completely changed in the last in the last 1.5 years. The 70% of our top 10 selling products are actually menstrual health products. So we never ever expected that. And we were really surprised about that, because we are selling products which are reusables. So why are people buying it again and again? So it's very important for an entrepreneur, or if you're leading any enterprise, for you to really know what the demand is and what the market is talking about. So that's one. Second learning, I would say, is don't try to do everything yourself. I think as an entrepreneur, that's one of the biggest mistakes that we get into. It's tough to build a company, and it will always be. but don't try to do everything yourself. There are things that you can outsource. So if you're building a community-based, you're getting the community together to build products, build processes, a lot, that is the core of the work you are doing. So you need to really define what the core is. And based on that core, you can think of other functions, whether you want to develop it in-house or partner with someone in order to grow that. So these two, I would say, are really two key core learnings which are applicable whether you're building a business in US, Singapore, or in any part of the world. So, and that's generic to all of us, and also to recognize the fact that a lot of us get it wrong. Every one of us, we might be on the speaker panel, but we have got it wrong many times, believe me. So getting it wrong and learning from mistakes, in my personal opinion, is a better way of moving forward as compared to not trying out things. So, and that's where as an entrepreneur, you actually increase the risk appetite that you have with the business. And if you go to, like Lana was very clearly pointing out, right? All of us ex-finance people, we still talk in traditional finance terms. Sometimes if you talk about a risk return paradigm, there won't be higher returns if you don't take a bit more risk. However, there is a way you take risks, which you can mitigate, which you can actually make it more restorative, the way I was talking about, and then that becomes a part of your business philosophy. So I think those are 2-3 things I would say that are very integral and key as you develop or anyone develops a business on their own.
Yeah, that's very interesting, especially for the first one, listen to the market, because that's very tough, right? As you've mentioned, this is on your first list. How do you listen to the market? Like, do you use professionals to conduct market research, for example, or you do it with your team, making surveys? So perhaps it could be applied as well by some of the audience learning from you.
Yeah, I think while I answer this question, I'll always tell you it's one of those things which you're always in the process of. So I think if any company says that they know it perfectly, in my opinion, they're lying. So especially in early stage startup. But so how we do it, I think it's become a bit easier to do this, especially with social media and people having smartphone. In ASEAN in specific, we are in a region where the smartphone penetration in developing part of the world is actually one of the highest in the world, right? So we do get a lot of sensing through just social media. If you have an Instagram account, run polls, simple polls. Now, but what's very important to know is who is your customer? Which age group do they belong to? What is their lifestyle? That is, I think, very, very, very core to understand, because otherwise it's very tough to shape your offering. So when we started the Green Collective, and everyone in Singapore was like, yeah, sustainability is like a mini hippie movement. It's all about young people. However, just to share with you, most of our buyers are at least 32 plus, going on to 55. So those are the people who are actually taking purchasing decisions. So as we understood them better, we have a better understanding of the fact that our buyer is someone whose desire to support the environment or communities across the world comes from the fact that they had ownership of a house or having a family, having a kid. So that brings in a different kind of a sentiment within people, and who, instead of buying cheap fashion or fast fashion or products which are just cheap, actually move, and there's a philosophical change in lifestyle. So these things we hear, you don't need to keep doing a lot of market research, because honestly, it's time consuming. It's also expensive. But yeah, so and also sometimes you need very quick responses, because what's happening, and that's a tragic part, but that's true for most of us, is that our attention spans are going down. And definitely for the consumers, the attention spans are going down. So if you look at surveys, and if you look at completion rates of surveys as well as drop-off rates, if you are talking to consumers, I'm not talking about doing a survey of CBNEs, or where they actually want to actively engage with consumers. If you ask them too long, things, you will lose them. So it's better to do bite-sized things and get more responses over a period of time rather than having these large-scale surveys. And one thing that is always important to consider is whatever research you do should lead to actionable recommendations. And I think that is something also a lot of early stage companies do a mistake in. So for example, one of the biggest issues with that is asking your consumers, do you want a sustainable product, right? So 90% or 95% of the people will say, yes, I do.
Yes, yeah. But
do
they actually buy it?
Exactly, right? And there's a research in UK for this. So 65% of the respondents say they want to adopt a sustainable lifestyle. However, only 23% of them actually are willing to make a change or to pay for it. So this leads to two issues. One issue that it leads to is that as an entrepreneur, you are thinking, oh, the UK has 90 million people, or let's say Indonesia has 250 million people, 90% of the people want it. So my market is 90% of 250 million. No, it's not actually. So you need to be realistic, right? And then you will make a plan to reach those 90% of 250 million who are actually not really your customers. There is a very small subset of it who are actually your customers. So why I'm saying this is because one thing as entrepreneurs we need to do is we need to be very true to ourselves and eventually true to our investors, right? People who are putting money in, because everyone is in this together. And that is when the whole system would work. So that's another thing to be very, very careful about as you go about understanding your consumer.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that's very important for all of us here, understanding the market. And then the second one, maybe our goal is how to get them more understand more about what we're trying to achieve together, what's in it for them, right? Because sometimes how to make new trends, for example, that these will be the new trends in the genomics is the new trends, for example. Yeah, going to collective, a green collective is the new trend because those people are cooler than the normal products. So I guess that's our next discussion, yeah, later, because my background is on behavioral change communication marketing as well. So I know how difficult it is to convince people to be on board with something really good like this. I'll go back to Laina again. There's a question from the audience that I guess might be worthy to talk about in live, about the commercialization of those products, the indigenomics, I guess. How do make that works, Laina, in terms of commercialization, or like how to put it out there, because like without consumers and without like funding to support this, it won't be achieved as well.
Yeah, I saw that question, and I think it depends on what you mean by commercialization as well, because often that term is used for scaling a business, right? So if you are scaling a business, that means you're talking about a business that has already proven and has had a growth cycle, and now they want to go to the mass market. So if that's what the person meant, then there's actually a lot more funding. There's a lot more funding in that area because now you have revenues and you have customers and you have pent-up demand. And what is lacking is maybe machinery or staffing and the return. So a lot of times banks would probably come in there. For example, I mentioned the Asian Development Bank, on a regional basis, but within countries, for example, there are a lot more facilities. Like some countries, you would be able to go to the export-import part of the country, right? That can facilitate that kind of commercialization. But if you're talking about commercialization from like a startup idea, like really it's a small company, and like Meyer was talking about the testing. In fact, what I would add to what he was talking about as well is what I actually do also teach at the NUS Business School, and one of the things I teach there is product market fit, and how to do it in a very lean way. So if you know the lean startup model, you can actually use, as long as you're very clear of who your customer persona is. Right? Like he said, 250 million people is not your customer. If you have a clear idea of your customer persona, then it's easily. So in that case, it's slightly different because now you're taking a startup idea to maybe a small business idea. And that kind of commercialization is what is called the missing middle funding. That's kind of the area that we tend to be involved in because that's an area that's harder to find funding. But again, every business is different. Everybody needs different things, right? But again, it's very key to be very focused on the impact you're making on the community and meeting a need that the market wants. Trying to find a balance between the two is, of course, a huge challenge. So I'll give you an example here in the US. Although we were not involved in it in terms of funding, I actually curated a panel on restorative investing there. And that was a company that was very integrated in indigenous wisdom on the buffalo, bringing the buffalo back because the buffalo is tied to the indigenous people. And if you bring the buffalo back, you bring indigenous back. And the buffalo actually is very important for the land because there's a regenerative agriculture component to bringing back the buffalo. But what happened is when they were selling to companies like Whole Foods, they needed scale.
Yeah.
They were not able to get that scale. And so then unfortunately, their recipe got appropriated by another company. And when that company took forward, then their sales dropped. And as these sales dropped, most people didn't want to fund them. So it took a restorative investor who came in and say, no, this is an important one, and they help. So I can't give you an answer off the bat because it depends on what you're trying to achieve. But the key thing I would say is go and do research because there is funding out there, but it depends on where you are in the cycle. Are you startup? Are you missing middle? Or are you ready for mass market commercialize? All very different equations.
Yeah, that's very important. And then also that's very relieving for me to hear because I've been working with some of the district governments in Indonesia, for example, who trying to put forward the sustainable economy for their people, where they have the indigenous people, small micro enterprise that, you know, they have been, we're trying to connect them with the Ministry of Trade or, you know, all those big guys. And then their requirement is to have it at scale, to have it quick. And these people don't have the scale, don't have the technical ability to you know, fulfill all those huge order. And so hearing from this, it's very relieving for me that there is an avenue for that. It was just a matter of finding the right funder and then also the market, right? If I'm correct, so it would be a specialized market, yeah.
Correct. So because it's a market of people who understand. Say, for example, in Indonesia, right? Honey, the kind of honey that you get will be different depending on the flower season, right? The clover honey or the mango honey or the whatever, right? And so if somebody says, no, but I like mango honey and mango flower honey and I want it all year round, it's not possible, right? So it's a different type of customer also that you have to cater. But one point I must say that it's still a little disheartening in Asia. I'm not surprised that Megan is selling in the US because you have more conscious consumers who are willing to buy products that are sustainable. And in Asia, I think Mayur can confirm there was a study done by Raise Singapore that while Singaporeans like sustainable, they're still very price conscious. And they still are very, so we tried, one of the reasons we don't do market access as well, it was very difficult, you know, to find that niche market. But if you do find the niche market and you do find the niche investor, then you can stay within what you're trying to do. Don't try to suddenly scale and then you will fail.
Yeah. I think, well, now we have hope. So I guess, you know, we should connect better. And then thank you so much for that. I'm actually quite relieved, honestly, to hear about that there is an initiative for that, and there are people, growing a number of people who are working towards that. Thank you so much, Lena, for the great work you have done. Next, I would like to invite Ibu Megan. Ibu Megan, so there are some questions from the audience asking, Bu, I have this product, can this also be marketed to the US? So if you can give us some information or have to like a basic, not requirements as to say, but like in terms of, for example, if it's durability aspect of the products, or can it be fit to be marketed in the US in terms of like regulations or so? Do you have any specific information towards that? What type of products that are potentially be marketed in the US, the area of market that you are working on right now?
Oh, what kind of product? I think right now, because of this COVID, there is it's been a paradigm shifting. I think we have to think more of value-added products, not just commodities, because commodities, the value of commodities is low, and the freight is extremely high now. So only high valued products actually worth the export.
Okay. So as long as it has value added, it can be exported. So ladies and gentlemen, there is some information from Ibu Mega on that. We are also still waiting for other questions as well, if you have any. Because we have great speakers, and then I'm actually personally very enlightened with all what they've said so far. So please feel free to drop a questions on there, and then I would go to Mayur again. So yeah, the next question is like, do CBNEs have a role in sustainable retail, like to be if we talk about growth, so that there are many places, even though it's niche products and catering to niche market, but do you see the growth in that, like in all countries, and especially in Asia? And then in what products or markets, and then what kind of trends that you see learning from Green Collective?
I think I'll give a two-layered answer to this one. I think, like Ibu mentioned just now, it's very important that the products have value add. I think moving forward, just relying on commodities will force you to generate more and more quantities, and you'll be always susceptible to global commodity prices changes and other things, right? So if you start doing more value add and end product, it's much you have much more control. The other part is that for products and the demand, there's definitely a shift, and I think I'll add on to what Lina was referring to regarding the demand in Asia. And yes, despite a lot of wonderful PR, despite a lot of shouting about sustainability and all, which might happen in developed Asia, it's still a niche market. It's growing for sure, which is why a Green Collective can exist. But the truth is this, that the Green Collective had to exist because of the fact that normal retail stores, and when I was an entrepreneur and working very directly with CBNEs with Kupita, it was almost impossible financially to be able to go through normal retail channels. And that is why we created Green Collective, but there need to be so many more Green Collectives. The reason, and that's the difference for Green Collective, because when Green Collective, we focus on the process. So, and that's moving into the second part of my answer on the product part, right? So when you're creating your product, I think what I feel is one of the biggest asset with a lot of community-based organizations is your whole process of how you interact in that ecosystem and how you use that ecosystem to create the product. What we realized from that, and like we've been talking about indigenous wisdom here a lot, and the inspiration we took from that was, how are people with little resources able to actually create value? And we actually looked at that process and tried to completely do retail in a very different way and created a set of processes in which brands could coexist without directly competing with each other and cannibalizing each other. And that process actually has become our product. So today you can actually start a Green Collective anywhere in the world, whether you reach out to 100 people, or whether you reach out to 50 people, or you reach out to 100,000 people. So that is the point. So that's one thing you can think about, how your process is done. It can actually be more replicable and across communities. and that has a lot of value.
Yeah.
So it's not just limited to the product part, it's actually your process also. And I think there are a lot of enablers in the system who can actually help you replicate. The third part I would just add on is basically, I think we need to, and I think that's for us collectively a responsibility for NTFP and everyone else, Green Collective, Engines of Impact, is to showcase more and more case studies. And I know that NTFP and Engines of Impact definitely do a lot of that. There are a lot of successful case studies. If you look at India, from what I can remember, Organic India, which is a brand under Fab India, grew from small farms and they gradually grew to become large growth companies. The fact and one inherent advantage they had was they were in a large market, right? But and I think as Lana was rightly pointing out, Singapore is price sensitive. India is super price sensitive. But the thing is this, when we think of markets, we think of, oh, this market is only 1 million people. It's okay. You'll be quite successful if you can reach out to 1 million people, believe me. So we shouldn't worry about that. But yes, there are a lot of successful case studies, and it's very important to learn from those examples and remodel what we have. But the way I see the future is that other case I can give you is of a brand which has been a part of Green Collective for a very long time. And what they were revolutionizing is the way they were working with a shoemakers artisan community in India. And they have basically been working with them for the last 6 years. What they managed to do is these shoemaking communities or their kids will move to the city to find jobs eventually, right? One of the biggest challenges that exists with indigenous communities as well as artisan community. What they have ensured is they have created enough demand through product innovation with these shoes, and so that the next generation whose studies have been funded as the company has grown, they managed to create 2 little factories for them, which is used not just by the villagers and the artisans only working with this particular brand, but also with other artisans for a very small fee. Now what they are looking at is they've created this system, right? Now this system can be replicated in multiple locations. So that is what I mean by look at the system which is community based, because that can actually become a product as well. So yeah, these are 2-3 things to keep in mind.
Yeah. So following on that, what are the price points for products which are most fast moving in Green Collective? And then why do you think is that? Because we were talking about, price sensitivity.
Yeah, I think so. The way we look at is that there will always be products which are $3 to $5 Singapore, which move faster. However, we also have value products, right? So I was telling you our biggest range is menstrual health products, and they are $25 plus. So the top 70% of our top 10 selling products are not cheap, I would say, because $25 is basically almost 50% of our average purchase price. So it's actually in the higher range. But having said that, this change has happened over a period of time. Okay. So it takes time for the market to mature a bit more and to actually start trusting the fact that you can actually get started at that price point. And that is a big role of marketing to do. And how the communication happens, it goes a long way in engaging with the customers, as well as actually building that trust. But I think price ranges where the demand starts going down is, I would say, is anything north of $100, $120. So one of the greatest things with Singapore, and which is where price sensitive in Singapore sometimes is a complicated thing to answer, because if you look at the e-commerce data, right, and I think we should talk about e-commerce because it is a growing part of how we distribute our products. The e-commerce, average e-commerce basket size is $90 in Singapore. And I think the next biggest is, if I'm not wrong, Philippines, which is at $35 or $40. So you're looking at 2 price points which are completely disproportionate, right? And then that is a reflection because more transactions are happening there today, especially with COVID. Digital has taken. So if you look at it, I think from what I have seen from my experience in Singapore, or even in affluent markets in ASEAN, anything north of $100, you start seeing a price tag and your market size will shrink.
Okay.
Right? But that does not mean that you should make cheap products. I think going back to what Lina was saying, don't buy cheap and sell cheaper. That's not the idea. The idea is for you to say that, okay, I'm going to have 3 products. One's going to be at $20, $25. Other's going to be at $30, $35. And there's going to be a premium one, which is going to be $100, $125. So then you have a whole portfolio. And then, of course, going back to what we've been talking about, listen to the market, know what's happening. And that's something we do with Green Collective. So every month with all the brands who are part of the Green Collective, we actually share our data. We give pricing advisory across sectors, so it's like an open source and you can actually ask questions. Also, our data is open source to every member. So they do get a lot of analysis because it's an ongoing thing.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving that information. I think that's very insightful. Now I would like to invite the audience, perhaps if you have any questions and would like to make some comments, you are welcome to open the mic and video so that you can be part of this discussion again. I've seen that there are some comments about research. I think that's also important as well, yeah. Maybe Romeo Lerom, Mr. Romeo Lerom, maybe if you would like to open the mic and then ask the question yourself, or please raise your hand and then we can help open your mic. While waiting, you don't have to turn on the camera, that's okay as well, just the mic, it's also fine. Do you have any? If not, maybe I will just read it out loud here. Hold on, I will scroll back up. Yeah, here from Romeo. As a researcher, I have a lot of plant products ready for commercialization out of the indigenous plants here in Palawan. I'm hoping you might be able to help us. I'm initiating to have a PEZA, Field Ecozone Authority, be established in our university. Hope they can also help us promote the utilization of these resources. So how do this, because academics, researchers also want stakeholders that we need to engage as well, yeah, other than NGOs, you know, the indigenous communities, etc. So how does this coming in, because researchers also need funding to do that. Is there any way that our system, our community can help accommodate that one out? Perhaps Lina can help answer that one first.
Yeah, I think what I was saying to him is that if you can look at my answer there, currently for us at Angels of Impact this year, we're incubating already 19 community-based enterprises that are in the handicraft sector. So we unfortunately will not be able to. So, and I don't know if whatever you're commercializing, if it's just an idea in the university before it goes out, then that's not, because we are focused on missing middle. That means people who've already taken a business and then needing to go the next level. However, as I advised earlier too, there are many resources that are available, and like government funding or university grants, or there's a lot of foundations these days that are also looking, like I know Oxfam, for example, you know, has a lot of, they have a project. We actually, one of the reports on our website was done together with Oxfam. So Oxfam would be, does fund a lot of research. Ande, another group that funds research, but commercialization, it's just a matter of finding out who the different players are, and then connecting with them. So we may not have all the answers for you right now, but you know, if you reach out to us and we can think of other people that we can connect you with, we'll be happy to do that. And if those, by the way, in terms of what Mayur was talking about, case studies, yes, we do try to showcase case studies. So we did write a book called Sustainable Impact, How Women Are Key to Ending Poverty. It's been 4 years since we wrote the book. We're trying to update the book. The next copy hopefully will come out soon. But I'm happy to share an e-copy with anybody. So you can just email me at lina@angelsofImpact.com and I can send you an e-copy of the book.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much. So we are approaching the end of our session now, but I would like to invite all the speakers one more time to give a closing remarks. What are the most important messages that you would like to convey to almost 100 audience we have in the very morning now? Maybe I can start with Mayur first.
Sure, definitely. I mean, it's actually a real privilege to be here because I think the one part I want to say for every CBNE and every entrepreneur there is that it's a lot of the future of work and a lot of jargon that you might hear from city folks like us actually comes inspired from what you have taught us and what we've learned from a lot of the community-based movements which are happening on the ground. And and your work and your contribution to the overall society and the ecosystem uh, is the most integral part to us moving forward. Our efforts will be useless if you don't continue to do what you do. So what I would really like to say is continue to please do things that the way they were done, then they are done, and innovate, because our forefathers have innovated, our society is always innovated, and we will also innovate and become better versions of ourselves. So that's how I would like to summarize. And of course, I left my email in the chat box. If you're looking for some support or anything that you want to know about accessing Singapore or other markets, please feel free to write to me.
Yes, and one more time, because you've also in the retail and then you've been, accommodating a lot of the CBNE's product with this pandemic, a lot of disheartened, unfortunate conditions perhaps that maybe discourage them to go further. Do you have also some, positive messages for them that, do you see any, lights in the end of the tunnel for them? Mayur, and then
Yeah,
later.
I think it's a matter of like, I think when we say these things, we have to innovate ourselves first. So online is a way to innovate. We've done, like right now, we are in the middle of, I don't know the exact terminology, but some version of a lockdown in Singapore, wherein it's restricted, but our store is still running. But like restaurants are not open. However, we are doing live selling from Green Collective. So we take a category per day. And so it's about finding out the solution. So I'm personally a solutions driven person, not a problem driven person. So I'm eternally optimistic as an entrepreneur, as I should be. So basically, I think what pandemic has done is it's actually created a lot of consciousness in the minds of the customers, because they got the time to reflect, they got to be closer to their families, which I was mentioning earlier, is a key mover towards people being more conscious of what they consume overall, right? And these things should be considered as a positive. In addition to that, and a very, very important point, and I think that's where I have immense amount of respect for people like Lina who've been doing Angels of Impact when it was not really very, very cool to do impact funding and financing, is that there are so many more people. There's so much more capital that is going to be available. And that can really, really help you scale the kind of work you are doing. And the only thing is, please be careful of who you partner with, and please be careful of what kind of capital you're getting, so that you can stay true to yourself and the philosophy of why you set it up. So there is a lot of positives. Yeah, I know this is a hiccup. I know it's tough. It's been very, very tough for us as well, because in our consumer facing businesses, but we learned to innovate. We learned to innovate as we started. But our way of supporting a lot of the CBNEs was that instead of doing products on consignment, we started doing inventory buyouts, because we knew that a lot of communities were not getting linked to a lot of, in the ASEAN market, sometimes the lockdowns were much stricter than Singapore. So we followed that approach and we worked with businesses. So it's about finding the solution. And there is a lot of positives out of it.
Yeah, focusing on solutions and then have a positive mindset about how we handle this very difficult situation. But we can do it. Ibu Megan, do you have any, messages for all of those CBNEs out there who are facing difficult thing, for example, about this? And then how do you, for example, motivate yourself in this situation? Because you've said that it also impacted your business as well. Bu Megan?
Well, I guess like what Mayur said, that as entrepreneur, we have to stay positive. We have to always encourage each other. Of course, sometimes we will feel down, we feel discouraged, but we always have to keep reminding ourselves that be positive. And also it's so more now more than ever before that we have to be more creative. We have to think out of the box. It's like a jargon, but that is so true. There are things that we have to, I mean, the way we think, we have to have a paradigm shifting in the way we think. So we cannot just business as usual, or just all those things that we did prior to pandemic. A lot of them actually not working anymore. So we have to think different ways and different things also, and be creative with your products. Be patient, and also I think like what Mayur said, that we cannot do everything, all things by ourselves. We have to collaborate. That's one of the things that I learned from this forum also. So I genuinely thank the organizers, especially Chrissy. I mean, she's my contact person, the person I know, for inviting me to this event. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ibu. That's the wonder of networking, and then having support systems like this. And then I'm also very happy to see many different actors here speaking about this. Thank you so much, Bu Megan. Lana.
Yeah, I think a lot of what I would have said was very beautifully said by both Mayur and Megan. And I think all I would like to remind you is I truly believe that there's something happening in the world today. Besides everybody being aware that climate change is, of course, creating a chaos that's impacting everybody, the Black Lives Movement has also, with everybody locked up in your houses during the pandemic, like Maya was saying, there's an opportunity that happened with that. And one of the opportunities is that racial injustice has become very, very clear. There is a thirst in the world right now in indigenous wisdom. It is really rising. It's unfortunately, it's also led to appropriation of indigenous wisdom. But because of racial justice, there is also a greater awareness that they have to do it in the right way. So there is, like Maya was saying, I think, if in the last 5 years, Maya, you have seen also Singapore change, right? That whole demographic of where the niche is, it's also happening globally. And with the pandemic, people are getting used to, like, I would not have been able to participate in this conference, right? If it wasn't for the pandemic, that I'm here in the US and I'm still participating in it. So just kind of like, don't believe in the fact that the universe is shifting. In the Native American world here in the US, the prophecy of the 7th generation. I don't know if many of you are aware of that. There is a prophecy of the arising of the 7th generation that will bring back a just and regenerative world. You are the 7th generation. Okay, that's one thing to remember. The other prophecy is also that when the condor and the eagle meet, which is the indigenous people from the east and the indigenous people from the west and the indigenous come together, there will be an arising that will happen in the world. And that's already happened and happening. And I've just been very honored to be part of it. I serve on the board of a Lakota foundation. That's where I actually hear and listen all this happening. And I've seen this in the sort of the woke world of people who care about sustainability. They not only care about sustainability, but they also care about indigenous. And so don't compromise what you're doing. Believe that what you're doing is good for people and planet. Believe that what you're doing, someone out there cares enough to want to buy it. yes, there is the real world problem of logistics and pricing and product market fit. But just listening to Mayur speak, I've seen him over 5 years with Kopita to now what he's doing at Greek. I found it I learned a lot, Mayur, from just listening to you. And it's already really deeply touched me that your approach has also been very much, at the community level. And as you said, it's about replicability, right? And that's another thing I love is I never believe that scalability is one company going big. I believe it's about a movement. And it started with me talking to Mayur, who then connected me to Chrissy, who then connected me to this event. So if we connect hearts together, we can arise. And there is a market out there in the world that recognizes, like Megan was saying, the honey that you have is even more than Manuka honey, right? Antioxidants. But why is it even valued? There's people who value that. They now recognize that healing is holistic. We need to be one with planet. We need to be one with natural foods. So don't give up and don't compromise. Stay true to yourselves and believe that what you have to offer is what the world needs.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful. I learned so much from this 90 minutes discussion. And it wouldn't be fair if we don't invite Chrissy to give a few words, because without you, we won't be here today. I'm sorry for putting you on the spot.
As you see, I'm not ready to be on screen. but I've been messaging my colleagues, almost half teary. I tough spot where they are. I mean, we have sagu producers in Sumatra that had markets in Malaysia, for example, that have been difficult to innovate. I think they have been innovating and looking into the livestock feed, for example. And there is innovation, but it continues to be difficult. But your words are inspiring, and we all have to hold on. We all know that there will be an end to this, and by working together and finding those that are of the same mindset and want to be part of the same movement, like all of you here and the other 103 people in the room, I think we can make a difference. So I think let's make this the start of a conversation, and let's keep talking. It might break down into more smaller group finance. Like I was telling in another WhatsApp group parallel to this, that we should tie up with like Angels of Impact, and how maybe we could provide some of the grant funding that would match to some of your loan funding, where we're providing some technical assistance, and then the CBNEs can engage as a real business. And of course, we are in ongoing discussions with Ibu Megan for certain products, and we hope the pandemic will soon end so we can continue that conversation. And Mayur, before he joined, I think in our discussions also said, some of these best CBNEs can also be placed in Green Collective. And I say that for 100 people to hear, so that can happen, and that the Green Collective can emerge in many other places in Singapore and elsewhere. So I thank you, Leah, for moderating this session that has been so inspiring in this early morning hour for you. And the late time for you. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chrissy, for the energy you've given and get all of us together here. And then thank you so much for Laina, Ibu Megan, and Mayur. I've learned a lot. This has been very inspiring, relieving as well, because there are some people who are starting this movement, and then it will grow bigger. That can benefit our community, indigenous community, and local people that really depend on the healthy of the forest to be able to, you know, be prosper, live well, just every one of us, so that we hope we can have a just and sustainable life and come out from this pandemic be better, not doing the business as usual thing, but even, you know, have all this transformative thing that will be good and just for all of us. And thank you so much for more than 100 participants. I'm really happy to be with you all from, you know, a lot of countries. So I hope that you can tune in, you can follow up all the discussions. Feel free to contact all the speakers there. They have been putting their emails on there. And I would like to ask you also to turn on the camera, because we will be having a photo session so that we can have a good documentation. So since we have 100, more than 100, so we will, you know, keep smiling for a while. So, you know, hold your smile for like 2 minutes. You can also like fix the hair, for example, put on some lipstick maybe. So I'll try to count so that later we will be smiling in the same time. Yeah. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Hold on. For the second one, okay, maybe different style. 1, 2, 3. Okay, the third one, maybe with the hands. I don't know. 1, 2, 3. And then another one, the last one. 1, 2, 3. Oh, actually, there is 5 pages. So another one. 1, 2, 3. Yay, I hope the committee got all the pictures together. We have a lot of participants here, and thank you so much for showing up. Please give a big round of applause for all of us. You can do that from your screen or also put the reaction here. So thank you so much, everyone. Hope we still stay connected. Stay healthy, stay safe, stay positive. Good job, everyone. And then bravo for CBNE and NTFP. Bye-bye. I'm Leah Zakia. Bye-bye. Oh, there's actually a